Ego, the current state of humanity. Words, no matter whether they are vocalized and made into sounds or remain unspoken as thoughts, can cast almost hypnotic spells upon you. You easily lose yourself in them, become hypnotized into implicitly believing that when you have attached a word to something, you know what it is. The fact is, you don't know what it is. You've only covered up the mystery with a label. Everything, a bird, a tree, even a simple stone, and certainly a human being, is ultimately unknowable. This is because it has unfathomable depth. All we can perceive, experience, think about is the surface layer of reality, less than the tip of an iceberg. Underneath the surface appearance, everything is not only connected with everything else, but also with the source of all life out of which it came. Even a stone, and more easily a flower or a bird, could show you the way back to God, to the source, to yourself. Even when you look at it or hold it and let it be without imposing a word or mental label on it, a sense of awe, of wonder arises within you. Its essence silently communicates itself to you and reflects your own essence back to you. This is what the great artists sensed and succeeded in conveying in their art. Van Gogh didn't say, "That's just an old chair." He looked and looked and looked. He sensed the beingness of the chair. Then he sat in front of the canvas and took up the brush. The chair itself would have sold for the equivalent of a few dollars. The painting of that same chair today would fetch in excess of $20 million. When you don't cover up the world with words and labels, a sense of the miraculous returns into your life. That was lost a long time ago when humanity, instead of using thought, became possessed by thought. A depth returns to your life. Things regain their newness, their freshness, and the greatest miracle is the experiencing of your essential self as prior to any words, thoughts, mental labels, and images. For this to happen, you need to disentangle your sense of I, of beingness, from all the things it has become mixed up with, that is to say, identified with. That disentanglement is what this book is about. The quicker you are in attaching verbal or mental labels to things, people, or situations, the more shallow and lifeless your reality becomes, and the more deadened you become to reality, the miracle of life that continuously unfolds within and around you. In this way, cleverness may be gained, but wisdom is lost, and so are joy, love, and creativity and aliveness. They are concealed in the gap between the perception and the interpretation. Of course, we have to use words and thoughts. They have their own beauty, but do we need to become imprisoned in them? Ego is no more than this: identification with form, which primarily means thought forms. Complete identification with form, physical forms, thought forms, emotional forms. This results in a total unawareness of my connectedness with the whole, my intrinsic oneness with every other as well as with the source. This forgetfulness is suffering and delusion. When this delusion of utter separateness underlies and governs what I think, say, and do, what kind of world do I create? To find the answer to this, observe how humans relate to each other, read a history book, or watch the news on television tonight. If the structures of the human mind remain unchanged, we will always end up recreating fundamentally the same world, the same evils, the same dysfunction. The ego tends to equate having with being. I have, therefore I am. And the more I have, the more I am. The ego lives through comparison. How you are seen by others turns into how you see yourself. If everyone lived in a mansion or everyone was wealthy, your mansion or your wealth would no longer serve to enhance your sense of self. You could then move into a simple cabin, give up our wealth, and regain an identity by seeing yourself and being seen as more spiritual than others. How you are seen by others becomes a mirror that tells you what you are like and who you are. The ego's sense of self-worth is in most cases bound up with the worth you have in the eyes of others. You need others to give you a sense of self. And if you live in a culture that to a large extent equates self-worth with how much and what you have, if you cannot look through this collective delusion, you will be condemned to chasing after things for the rest of your life in the vain hope of finding your worth and completion in your sense of self there. How do you let go of the attachment to things? Don't even try. It's impossible. Attachment to things drops away by itself when you no longer seek to find yourself in them. In the meantime, just be aware of your attachment to things. Sometimes you may not know that you are attached to something, which is to say until you lose it, or there is the threat of loss. If you then become upset, anxious, and so on, it means you are attached. If you are aware that you are identified with a thing, the identification is no longer total. I am the awareness that is aware that there is attachment. That's the beginning of the transformation of consciousness. Wanting, the need for more. The ego identifies with having, but its satisfaction in having is a relatively shallow and short-lived one. Concealed within it remains a deep-seated sense of dissatisfaction, of incompleteness, of not enough. I don't have enough yet, by which the ego really means I am not enough yet. As we've seen, having, the concept of ownership, is a fiction created by the ego to give itself solidity and permanency and make itself stand out, make itself special. Since you cannot find yourself through having, however, there is another more powerful drive underneath it that pertains to the structure of the ego, the need for more, which we could also call wanting. No ego can last for long without the need for more. Therefore, wanting keeps the ego alive much more than having. The ego wants to want more than it wants to have. And so the shallow satisfaction of having is always replaced by more wanting. This is a psychological need for more. That is to say, more things to identify with. It is an addictive need, not an authentic one. The thought forms of me and mine, of more than, of I want, I need, I must have, and of not enough pertain not to content, but to the structure of the ego. The content is interchangeable. As long as you don't recognize those thought forms within yourself, as long as they remain unconscious, you will believe in what they say. You will be condemned to acting out those unconscious thoughts, condemned to seeking and not finding. Because when those thought forms operate, no possession, place, person, or condition will ever satisfy you. No content will satisfy you. As long as the egoic structure remains in place, no matter what you have or get, you won't be happy. You will always be looking for something else that promises greater fulfillment, that promise to make your incomplete sense of self complete and fill that sense of lack you feel within. So what I just read is a little bit from A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, which I highly recommend, and I've definitely spoken about A New Earth and The Power of Now, which are both books by Eckhart Tolle. I highly recommend them. I've definitely spoken about it before in different recordings, but I wanted to read a little bit from A New Earth there and talk about ego and talk about comparison, because I think it's really important. I think it's something that we all experience, especially in today's day and age. It's so easy to compare what you have with what somebody else has, and to look on social media and see what everyone else is doing and seeing how they're living their life and comparing what they're doing to what you're doing and the kind of things that you have and the kind of things that you don't have, and judge yourself based on what other people have and end up in this very negative cycle. It's very easy to do that in today's day and age and with social media. As Eckhart Tolle points out in the book, ego is identification with form, whether that be thought form or physical form. When we identify ourself and our self-worth with the kind of things that we have or the kind of things that we don't have, that's ego. And the way that you move beyond ego is through presence. When the ego is at war, know that it is no more than an illusion that is fighting to survive. That illusion thinks it is you. It is not easy at first to be there as the witnessing presence, especially when the ego is in survival mode or some emotional pattern from the past has been activated. But once you have a taste of it, you will grow in presence power and the ego will lose its grip on you. And so a power comes into your life that is far greater than the ego, greater than the mind. All that is required to become free of the ego is to become aware of it, since awareness and ego are incompatible. Awareness is the power that is concealed within the present moment. That is why we may also call it presence. The ultimate purpose of human existence, which is to say, your purpose is to bring that power into this world. And this is also why becoming free of the ego cannot be made into a goal to be attained at some point in the future. Only presence can free you from the ego, and you can only be present now, not yesterday or tomorrow. Only presence can undo the past in you and thus transform your state of consciousness. So that was just a little bit more from the book that I wanted to read, but you break through and move beyond ego when you tap into presence and you are aware of those thought patterns of comparison that you may be experiencing when you look on social media and you see what everyone else has and you compare what you have to what those people have, for example. In addition to comparison, another trick of the ego is to make you feel that you aren't enough as you are right now, and that you have to do something to make you feel like you are enough, when that's bullshit. Just like plain and true, it's bullshit. You are enough as you are right now, and there's nothing that you need to do to make you more worthy of happiness, fulfillment, etc. Like, there is a peace that can be found within inside yourself when you practice things like presence and move beyond ego that will allow you to naturally see your natural state, which is joy and peace and love. And there's nothing that you need to get out there in the external to make you feel that way. When you feel like you lack something, when you feel like you need to chase something, chase a person, whatever it is, that's all ego. It's made up. It's an illusion, as Eckhart says in the book. The more you can practice presence, the more you allow yourself to just find that joy of being with inside yourself, the easier it's going to be to move beyond ego and let your true self, your natural self, arise. And it takes time. It's not something that happens instantly. You meditate for 5 minutes once and you get there, but it's something that takes practice, something that takes time. But if you can reach that state, you're going to notice a lot of joy that arises from that state and a lot of internal happiness just from being who you are, being proud of who you are, being satisfied with yourself. Another really key way I think you can move beyond ego is just to be grateful. Be grateful for who you are. Be grateful for the kind of things that you have right now, and be grateful that you are alive. That's a blessing. In and of itself, that's a blessing. The fact that you're breathing, the fact that you can listen to a recording like this, for example, a recording that's just geared to help you better yourself. You can be grateful for the fact that you care to better yourself and care to grow and care to improve. That's a wonderful thing and something to definitely be grateful for, because there's a lot of people who don't care to grow and don't care to get better and don't care to improve, and that's cool. But if you're here because you want to improve. You're listening to this, and you probably listen to other self-development podcasts or recordings or, audio books, or maybe you read self-development books, or you care to grow and get better, which is incredible. You should be proud of yourself for that fact, in my opinion. Stop comparing yourself with other people. Everybody is in their own lane. Everyone is doing their own thing and living their life for the first time. So it's important that you just focus on yourself, focus on what you're doing, and focus on how you can improve if that's what you want. Don't concern yourself with what other people have. And if it helps, get off social media. Stop scrolling. Do something else. Do something productive. Move beyond ego through presence. And you will no longer compare. You will no longer feel like you are not enough. It's all ego. It's just fake. It's made up. And your ego just wants to survive. And you can move beyond it when you practice things like presence, when you implement presence into your day-to-day life. So that's why I recommend meditating, practicing presence, being conscious of yourself. These are all things that will help you move beyond the ego. The ego isn't real. It's fake. It's made up. It's an illusion. And you move beyond it when you can practice presence. And the actionable piece of advice that I'd like to give that has to do with this recording ties back to the first part of this recording, where in the book, he talks about how people just label things in their environment and they don't really enjoy the presence of things. They just need to label things and attach their identity to the things that they see, the things that they hear, etc. So the actionable piece of advice that I'd like to give is next time you're on a walk, or if you choose to go on a walk, or wherever you are, just notice the things that are going on around you and be present while this is happening. And I guess you can only really be present if you're doing this correctly, but just be aware of everything that's going on around you without labeling the things that are going on around you. Just observe it. If you're walking in nature, for example, and you see a bunch of trees or birds or flowers, don't name it, don't label it. Just be aware of everything that's around you and enjoy its presence, so to speak. Just enjoy what's going on around you without labeling everything that's going on around you, and see how you feel. Hopefully you gained some value from listening to this. I wanted to read from A New Earth because I think it's an amazing book. If you haven't read A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, I highly recommend it. It's the sequel, I believe, to A Power of Now. I also highly recommend that. I made a video about that recently, so if you haven't read those two books, I highly recommend it. Let me know what you think if you get them, if you read them. But just remember that you are full, whole, and complete now. You are worthy now. And you don't need to derive your self-worth in things, in people, in things in the external. It can come from within. The joy of being within inside yourself. When you practice things like meditation and you practice things like presence, your innate awareness of these things, in my opinion, will increase. Ego makes us feel like we're not enough. Ego makes us compare what we have to what other people have. Ego is also fake. It's not real, it's an illusion, and you move beyond ego when you become aware of the fact that you're doing these things, or aware of the fact that it's happening. You're aware of ego, and you're aware of the fact that it's an illusion, it's fake, it's not real, and by implementing presence, you can move beyond it. That's all what ego is. It's fake, it's not real, it's an illusion. When you get those thoughts or those feelings and it's like, oh, I gotta get here, I can't be in this place, I'm not enough in this place, I gotta get here, I gotta get this new shiny thing, look at that person, they have that, and I don't have that, and I wanna feel that way, I wanna get there, and you think that you're not good right now, and it's just want, need, seeking, you gotta get here, you gotta do this, you can't feel enough until you get there. That's all ego, it's fake. So whenever you get those feelings, just slow down. Take a conscious deep breath. Slow down, get present, and know that you're good now. You will move beyond ego or dissolve ego when you're still, when you're present, because then your mind isn't going in a million different places. It's not about want and need and seeking anymore. It's just about being still, being present, being here, and knowing that you are enough now. You are good now. Ego can't exist when you're in that state. So just be here now and enjoy being here now. So practicing, 5 to 10 minutes of meditation every single day, I think is a really good starting place for a lot of people. If you find yourself comparing yourself to other people, which I guess we all do, but anyways, that's all I wanted to get across in this video. If you like these style of recordings where I'm just like reading from a book or something, you can let me know. If you have any recommendations for the kind of things that you want me to talk about, also let me know. You can message me on Instagram at Presence of Being, and I'll get back to you, of course. Join the community over on Instagram. Thank you again for being here. Thank you again for being a part of our community, and I will see you in the next recording.